that so I can post it for your reports that you have to write. So I will turn this over to Dr. Hart again.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Akbari. It's great to come back. I think I did a talk for your class in 2016, maybe,
Yes.
but this is going to be fun. And welcome, everybody. Thank you for having me today. I'd like, in our short time, to focus on a few ideas, mainly around the meaning in music. What does music mean? You know, for some people, it's just having fun. It can be fun and enjoyable, but for most of the places I've been in the world, in Asia, Europe, the Caribbean, West Africa, the Middle East, across the Americas, it's more than that. It's really a part of life. And it's, in a way, for whether you're a performer, a musician, singer, artist, or somebody that is just looking at it and experiencing it, it's a way of life. For example, in Ghana, West Africa, music is essential to just about everything that's important. From birth, well, pregnancy even, before birth, there's music and songs for that. For giving birth to a child, for bringing a child out into the public, what's called in Ghana outdooring, Ghana, West Africa. You introduce the child to the village or to the community. And at that point, the child becomes the responsibility of not just the parents, but the whole community. Almost as if everybody in the entire village is the godfather and mother of the child. There's music for adolescents, for giving moral advice to youth, for puberty, adolescence, for adulthood, for marriage, for growing old, for honoring the elders, for death at funerals, very important funerals. If you give your beloved a great funeral with drumming and dance and remembrances, you've sent them off into the other world, into the spirit world, the best way you can. That's your responsibility as a child or a relative. And then remembering ancestors and connecting with the spirit world and with the creator and with nature and with the environment and honoring heroes and voluntary groups that come together, even before war. Although now there aren't any wars in Ghana and Togo, and not many in West Africa, but preparing for war in olden days. But today, that same idea of preparing for war is preparing people, individuals, and communities and groups to go to, in effect, in quotes, war against some of the things that we all face. Facing loss of friends, loss of your house, loss of your money, loss of your health, loss of so many things, to be fighting against these difficult things. All of us go through time and space in life, and we have to face all kinds of difficult things, things that are unfair, things that are irrational, things that are insane, things that are wrong. Sometimes the wrong is in us, but whatever it is, we face that. And this music in West Africa gives people the emotional, the intellectual, the physical, the spiritual way to have strength to meet the obstacles of life, to meet all the insanity that we all come upon. So I'd like to now just play a few things. This would be traditional, more of the talking, to welcome you with a few drum rhythms. And I'll speak them as best I can. I hope you can hear them. I'll move this just a touch closer. And so the first, you see all these drums here. Well, I've just put them here because I've retired from teaching, but they wouldn't all normally go together because they're from many different cultural groups in Ghana. Ghana is a country in West Africa. It was the first sub-Saharan black country to get its independence in March 6, 1957. It was brought by its first president, Kwame Nkrumah, and he was helped by John Parkmore and the great visionary and scholar and Pan-Africanist W.E.B. Du Bois, William Edward Burghardt Du Bois, who lived here in Massachusetts, but finally went to Ghana and died there. So Ghana had its first independence, and in Ghana there are 34 cultural groups. And so each one has its own distinctive music and dance and art and cosmology and instruments. These are just a tiny bit of the instruments from a few of those 34 cultural groups. I'd like to start with, over here you see the two drums. They're known as atumpang, and they are one of the many master drums of the Asante people of Ghana who live in central Ghana. The capital where you fly into is Accra on the southern coast. That's where the Ga people live. But if you go up about 5 hours by car or 45 minutes by plane, you come to Kumasi, which is the capital of the Asante region. And it's there and other parts of the Asante region, you see these drums. And also these two big boma, which we'll get to in a minute. So I'm going to play an invocation on the atumpang. It goes, Yesua momiahanu. This is in Asante language known as Twi. It's spelled T-W-I, but it's TW is pronounced like CH, so it's Twi. Let's all say that, Twi. Cool. So it's Yesua momiahanu, Yesua momiahanu, Yesua momiahanu, Twenebo kodua, Brempong, de mirifadwe, de mirifadwe, de mirifadwe, dwe dwe ni, amiane hunu, brempong, yamawa kwaba, adewuroko fima homreso, kumubrebre, Yesua momiahanu, Yesua momiahanu. Now you noticed in those words, I had different pitches. All languages in Africa, sub-Saharan, Black Africa basically, are tonal, with at least three groups, low, middle, and high, and sometimes in between that as well. And the drums, these drums, either individual drums or groups of drums in ensemble, can represent the low, middle, and high pitches of indigenous language. And here, Asante Twi. And I'll demonstrate that with the invocation I just spoke. The invocation, loosely translated, means honorable person. We respect you and we feel our heart for you, having gone through life with all the pains and sufferings of life. But we know that you will reach your destiny, honorable person. So if it was for a funeral music such as Adowa, and Adowa is played in an ensemble with these atumpang leading it, you'd play that invocation prior to Adowa. But even if it's played when Adowa is just for a social occasion, you could still play that. So now I'll demonstrate that invocation. Here are two drums. The lower one is to the left, higher to the right, and that's considered the male and female. So here's the invocation. Yesua momianhu, Yesua momiahanu, Yesua momiahanu, Yesua momiahanu. Twenebo kodua, Brempong, Demirifadwe, 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 Dwe ni, Amiane hunu, Brempong, Yamawa kwaba, Adawuroko fi, Mahomraso, Adawuroko fi, Mahomraso. Adawuroko fi Mahomraso, Kumubrebre, Kumubrebre, Yesua momiahanu, Yesua momiahanu, Yesua momiahanu, Yesua momiahanu. So that's the invocation that you would play before starting Asante Adowa. And in Asante Adowa, I'm doing this a little artificially because you would normally have a whole ensemble of about 7 instruments playing. But since I'm only one person, I can't really demonstrate that for you. But the bell pattern, in many of these pieces, the ensemble is led with an iron bell to keep the time, like a heartbeat. It's called the timeline. And the bell for Asante Adowa is And the bell is the instrument that all the other instruments refer to. So here's just a little taste of the bell, if you can remember that pattern, or it's coming here. If you're a musician, it would be written in 12/8 time with the dotted quarter as the main beat. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, ka, 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 ka. Let me demonstrate that with the bell again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 1. So it'd be like that. And here's a little bit of Asante Adwa. I'll start with the bell here. So that's a very short section of the lead drumming on Atumbang from the funeral and social music of the Asante people known as Adowa. That section was known as Kobena Pene Intoma, meaning the cloth, the ceremonial cloth worn by Kobena. Kobena Pene Intoma. Kobena, in Ghana, men and women have a day name for each day of the week. For example, I was born on Monday. Today's a Monday. So a male born on Monday is kwadzo. A Tuesday born male is kwabena. A Monday born woman is adzenyah, and so forth, all the way through the week. So this is kwabena pana intoma, the cloth that kwabena wears. He would be a Tuesday born male. Another example of music as part of life, we saw it as a social and funeral music with Adowa. Now let's move to another music that also includes these Atumbang master drums, but along with the deep boma drums, which you see here, these two, each one would be played by a different person. And there would be supporting drums as well, and again, a bell. And I'll start with that bell. This is called dawuro. The other one was also called dawuro. This is a smaller bell, D-A-W-U-R-O, dawuro. This would be known as kete dawuro, and it's also used in Adowa. Kete is another royal court music. Kete dawuro, it's like a boat-shaped bell you can see with an open slit along the top. Some are larger than this. This is a different kind of dawuro. And this is known as akom dawuro, or just dawuro, because it's played in the spiritual music known as akom, but it's played in many other pieces too. And here is the bell, the basic bell for this music I'm now going to play that's called Fantam From. Along with that basic bell, you have a dialogue among all the instruments. There's a small ajijiwa, armpit drum known as dono, but the biggest, or the main, the central conversation is the deep boma, and the higher pitched, but still low and high pitched atumpan. going to play a short excerpt from one of the 4 fontamfram sections. This one is called Atopiretia, Atopireta, Atopiretia. It's used to honor the chief of the Ashanti, and the chief is known as Asante Hene. Hene means chief, Asante is the people, the cultural group. So chief of the Asante, Asante Hene. The current one is Otumfo Osetutu II, Asante Hene. So these rhythms are used to honor the chief of the Ashanti, often played at festivals at the Mansha Palace in Kumasi, the cultural center of the Asante. So here it is, Boma and Atumpang. Now, again, this is only a demonstration. I would never play this way because each instrument is supposed to have a person with the full group. So here we go. Okay, so that is a very short section from the court drumming known as Asante Fontamfram. Now I'm going to move this a little so maybe it'll be okay. Now we're going to move to the Ewe people. They live in Ghana and Togo, and they share music with the Fon people who live in Togo and Benin. So this cuts across 3 geographical or national areas, Benin, Togo, and Ghana, along the coast of southern coast of West Africa. This music, again, like the others, has many sections, but I'm going to just focus on one. This is called adzenyah, and it's played in honor of a warrior god or spirit or person known as adzogbo. And it involves a story of the tug of war between an elephant and a crocodile. Land being the elephant, water being the crocodile. It's a symbol of conflict among people, but in a greater, deeper sense, a symbol of the conflict among all human beings with the issues that arise in their life, the problems that arise in their life path toward their destiny. And this is a really beautiful bell pattern. I use it with my jazz group, Blood Drum Spirit. And in Western terms, if you're thinking of it as a musician, actually, maybe we could almost try to do that. If you think of it in terms of written music, it would be 24/8 time with 8 dotted quarter beats. Now, a dotted quarter beat has 3 eighth notes. So each dotted quarter would be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, but there's 8 of them. So it adds up to 24. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and so on. So you get to 8 to 24. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, like that. All right, and it can be at different tempos. But the beauty of this pattern is that there are 3 phrases within that 24 pulses in one heartbeat, one timeline, one cycle. We'll call it a heartbeat because that's what it feels like. There are 3 8-unit phrases. So the beauty of it is it shifts in relation to the underlying beat the 8 beats, because 8 isn't even with 9. It's 1 unit less. So it starts at a different point in that 3-fold division of each beat. It comes back out. Now, if you're a general student, you might not play an instrument. Don't worry about it. It's just know that this bell pattern has a very complex construction, and it takes 3 times for the playing of a phrase or a motive to come back out, so it lasts very long time musically. It's 8 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so just now we'll forget all that. Just listen to it. Here it comes. So I'm going to move like this so you see where the big beats are, and here it comes. Okay, so that's the basic pattern of this first part of adzohu, known as kadodo. Kadodo is forming a circle. I'll play one rhythm from that just to give you a little taste of it. Can you see me okay on the... Okay,
Yeah.
So I'll do the bell pattern to start down here, but then I got to play it. And again, there would be 3 other drums with this: kagan, kidi, sogo, a bell, a rattle, other small instruments. Everybody'd be singing, everybody'd be dancing, so it'd be this entire village totally in an intense ritual of life. Unlike one guy here in New England playing one drum, that's not the same. So I'm just want to give you a demonstration. Okay, so here we go. Slice of adzohu, kadodo. The dancers come in and form a circle. And when I spoke a little bit, that was drum language called vugbe. Vu is drum, be is speak in Ewe language. Drum speak, drum language. And the different tones, adzuabona, low, mid, low, low. Adzuabona. So that drum language expresses the words in Ewe, adzuabona, and everybody go, yo! And adzuabona means, let's get ready to go to war. We're ready. And everybody's saying, yeah! Now, in contemporary context, that can be thought. It has many interpretations, especially for me as a non-culture bearer. But my teachers tell me that one of the main things is how we prepare ourselves to go to war with the difficulties that we're going to face in life, both the ones that we've got now and the ones that we don't even know about, that somebody's going to hit us with one day, to be able to get through it and survive as human beings and keeping who we are. I'll do a second part of adzohu, which is called ago. It's faster, but it has the same long heartbeat or timeline. And it's again 3 8-unit motives put together. It repeats. It's the same motive 3 times, and it comes out after 24. Now, I should say that nobody in Ewe land and Togo land sat down at a table with a pencil and pad and say, well, you know, let's try to do something complex. And if we do something 3 times at 8 and it doesn't come out with a triple underlying pulse, then it'll come out in 24. That's pretty cool. No, this is just the way it comes out. That's just, it was a natural thing. It's organic. I'm only talking about it in terms of numbers to help you understand it and to as a guide. But when you're playing it, it's just an oral phenomenon. It's not contrived or mathematical or charted out or anything like that. So this is from the aggo section, and here is the motive. If it was in 4 in a duple field, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, well, but that's what it would be in a duple field. In a triple field, though, it doesn't come out evenly with an underlying triple field because it's 8 units. So it staggers just like in kadodo, and it comes out after 3 times. So this is what it would be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, now against that backdrop, and it's also remarkably faster than kadodo. So it's got many energetic dance movements, and it's got many drum languages in it, many vugbe. I'll show you about 3. The first one is chadoe, achadoe, alifome. Chadoe, achadoe, alifome. Chadoe, achadoe, alifome. Chadoe, alifome. Chadoe, chadoe, alifome. That means how you are acting in your life reveals how you were brought up by your family and the village. How you act is a manifestation to everyone how you were brought up. Another one is that is gava jobe ji kone milakpe gava jobe ji kone milakpe gava jobe ji kone milakpe gava jobe ji kone milakpe. That means come to the battlefield and we will clash. We will confront you. Whether in olden days it was another enemy group of warriors, or today fighting against what we feel is injustice or the difficulties we've got, or just paying the rent, or getting enough money for my supper, for my kids, my wife, husband, parents, whatever. Okay, so now we're going to do one that's a little longer. The words to it are meva dugbaji. Meva dugbaji. Come and see them. Meva dugbaji. Meva dugbaji. Come. Edwoken mivane miakpo miakpo dugbaji. Come and see them. The warriors, the dancers, the drummers, everybody's getting ready to go to war. So come and see inside of us how we're going to resolve, how we're going to figure out to confront all this stuff that we get in life that's not cool. We're going to fight it. How we confront it. Then the final part, beji. Then back to miva dugbaji. Beji. Lives mission. Our lives are their mission. Our lives as a surviving village are the mission of the warriors. Our lives as people are the mission of my ability to confront these and still stay who I am. So here we are with this vugbe, this drum language of the Ewe people in the ago section of the music known as adzenyah. I'll start with the bell on the side here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, I should say that those are the words that would be understood to be spoken in this drum language. But if you're learning the drumming, the drum itself has its own low, middle, and high tones, and they are spoken as syllables when they're being taught. So let me demonstrate some of the syllables. The low is ga. I don't know if you can really, in the internet, hear how deep this is, but it's just pretty deep. Ga. De. That's low or mid, depending on context. Gi. Ki. Muted. So ga, deep bass. De, bass or middle, depending on context. Gi, middle. Ki, high. To, high. Ja, low. G, middle. So we put them like this. The very same thing I just did, now I'll say it with the vocables, the drum language, the vugbe for this drum. Oh, I didn't. This drum is called achimefu. Achimefu. Achime is a forked branch in a tree. Like if you have a pretty good sized branch, much bigger than these sticks, like this, and you have a forked branch, that's known as achime. And in the olden days, they would rest this long cylindrical drum on a giant fork like that. You know, imagine a fork like this, so it would go right under the drum and hold it. So that forked branch defined the way the drum was held and played, and the name for drum is vu. Okay? So like vugbe, drum language, vu with achime, achimevu, achimefu. So this is achimefu, and now we're going to do the drum language. So these are just a very few examples of elements from different parts of Ghana among Fon, Ewe, Asante people for funeral, social, court, warrior, or personal discipline contexts to express the way an individual or a village collectively comes through life on a path. And it's as I said, it's an essential part of life. If you have a funeral, you can't have a funeral without drumming. If you honor the chief of the Asante, you can't do it without the drums. If you have a music to prepare for war or your own self-discipline, you can't do it without the drumming, dance, and song. You can't do it. It's essential. So it's not just something that you can have as an added element. It is the ritual. It is the life. It's even, I would say, more than just saying it's a part of life. It is the life. And for those people in the culture, it is a way of life. For the musicians, it's not something you do for money or for status or fame or to get over with somebody or anything like that. It's a way of life. It's sacred in a way. And while musicians, of course, they have to eat, and they have to have houses, and they will accept money, of course, and they do get paid sometimes. That's not the real reason why it's done. It exists on its own for its own sake. Some philosophers and people would say the highest things in life are not done for external reward. They're done for the sake of themselves, for their own sake, for the purity of the depth and the reality and the goodness of it. Okay, so this is a lot of information in a short time and a far distance, but I think at this point we could play about maybe 5 to 6 minutes of a video I just put up on a website called Soup and Sound. It's a Brooklyn-based music series, and this is just the first 6 minutes, about an hour long. And I believe Professor Abghari has given you some links to my work, which you can check out at some point if you want. Some of this is on it, some is different. But this video is the beginning of a video. My group is called Blood Drum Spirit, and the title of this is Blood Drum Spirit, Truth in the Moment. In the African American music known as jazz, part of this diaspora from West Africa, actually, one of the essential aesthetics of it is spontaneous interaction in the moment, listening and reacting. And that quality is one of the most vital aspects of this tradition. And in jazz, we're constantly interacting. So the description of it as truth in the moment is perfect for what that tradition is about, and in African traditions as well. And so that's why we called it that. So the reason I'd like to play this now, I don't usually play videos during the thing, but you've only seen me stand here and talk to you. I think you can now see my group interact with those very drummers that are playing some of these drums. The village is in Anyako. It's along the central southeastern part of Ghana, along the coast. I've been there many times. It's a village of Anyako, and you're going to see behind us, it's the gateway to the Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of Benin, but it's actually a big lagoon where they get salt and fish and other things, minerals in that lagoon for their village to survive. But the drummers came here, led by k.Ladzekpo, and we got together and played. I brought students there many years ago, and we learned a lot of drumming, and the drumming that we learned is what I arranged for my jazz group, Blood Drum Spirit, to play when we did this recording for my film, which was known as, the film is called We Are One, but this is just one segment out of that film in this video called Truth in the Moment. After we play it, I'll give you some ideas about how I'm doing this, why I'm even doing it as a non-African. Somebody remind me to talk about that, because that is an issue. So I'd like to just let you check this out, and I'm going to ask Professor Abghari if I should do any. You're going to know this really quick. I'm the dumbest person on the planet.
No.
For technology. I don't even know what to do. But just tell me what to click and I'll do it.
Okay. So you have, again, that browser window with the video up. Do you have that up?
Yeah, it's right there. Yeah.
Okay, great. So now back to Zoom, that green icon, share screen,
Oh yeah, here it is.
and then you choose the window that has the video,
Yeah, cool.
and all those audio settings clicked off already.
Share sound, optimized for video clip. I didn't have that up for some reason.
Both of those should be clicked, and then share, and that's it.
Okay, let's try that. Let's see if it does.
Then you just play the video, and you can,
Okay, can you just let me know if you can see it?
yeah,
Uh-oh, where is it?
you can, it's coming to life, I think. It's black, but
Yeah, it's just my black.
I see it, but maybe just refresh it, refresh that page.
Do I refresh the,
There we go,
okay.
there you go, that's it.
Yeah, here it is. So
Yeah,
I just clicked, all right, here we
yeah,
go.
and you can expand it if you want to make it big.
Oh yeah, here we go. All right, now let's see if it works. Tell me, just let me know if you can hear it okay.
Yes.
one of the things that makes
Hey,
Blood Drum Spirit a unique group.
good. Okay. I'm not sure how
Okay,
to.
now you
Oh,
can, again, that green icon may be above your screen now. Stop share, to
oh yeah.
stop share.
Okay. Just hit stop share.
Yes, that's it.
Oh, cool.
And
All right.
one more thing we forgot to do before you played. If you are going to play again, you don't have to do it now. We should turn on original sound, that thing that we played with, which is on your screen right now. It should give you the option to turn on original sound above the videos, upper
Yeah.
left hand
It
corner,
says what I
probably.
see. It says turn off original sound.
Oh, okay, so it's on already.
Okay.
Great,
Cool.
never mind. Then don't. Okay.
Okay. So I think at this point we could um, have any questions that people would like, and then I'll go into another area and room about it. I guess I should just say that the members of that group that you saw were David Beinman on saxophone, the bassist was Wes Brown, and the pianist was Art Hirahara. Wes lives in Massachusetts, and David and Art are in New York City. And most importantly, I should introduce the people that we played with in Ghana. The master drummers were Agbolosu and Ike Yavuchi. Supporting drums, Dorni Alija, and the gentleman with the bell is another master drummer, Olu Nujorbeti, and k.Ladzekpo, who was in the back, sitting with the orange cloth, was the director of the ensemble. And the music that I just played from the Ewe and the Asante people and Fon people was taught to me by Freeman Kwadzo Donkor, Abraham Kobena adzenyah, k.Ladzekpo, Godwin Agbeli, Yao Daniel Ochere, and Atapoku. And all of them have given me permission to perform and to share it with you, which brings up the issue of, do I, as a non-African, have a right to even learn and then play and record and perform the music? It's a complicated issue, but it's also, in a way, very simple. The music of the world's peoples is intellectual property. Well, I should say a different way. Many indigenous cultures don't think at all of property. There's no such idea. There's an idea of property insofar as you have a hut or you have a village, you have trees, you have animals, hens, or you get eggs or whatever. But those are parts of nature that you have a right to take care of. You're a custodian of it. That's a more appropriate word. You're a custodian. And you want to leave it better than you got it in your life. Somewhat like the Native American idea of 7 generations. You make all decisions and you act in your life so that it will affect in a good way the next 7 generations. The same idea. We are given custody of whatever we have on this earth, nature, our man-made, woman-made things, but as custodians, not like a sense of I own it, me. No, it's not me, I own it. It's we share it. That's the idea. And that is what I learned from many world cultures in Asia and Africa and wherever else I've gone. So in an ideal world, everybody could share everything all the time. But it isn't an ideal world. And in the West, we have ideas of control, property, ownership. And so there is a long history of non-Africans, and it's true to differing extents in other cultures of the world too. Non-Africans coming and buying a drum and coming back and learning a couple of things, and suddenly they become Mr. or Mrs. Africa and go around and look cool and even get teaching jobs, positions. They get tenure. But meanwhile, back at the home place where they learned all the music or didn't, are the very people that gave it to them that are masters that are still trying to find food to not starve. So that dynamic, what the African ethnomusicologist Kofi Agawo calls the asymmetry of power relations. translated meaning some people get everything and some people don't get anything, and it's unfair. So that dynamic is at play historically. There's a way that through cultural imperialism, non-Africans have taken things from Africa. And I guess you could extend this to saying this is true of many cultures of the world, but we're now talking about Africa. And it's wrong. I just feel that it's wrong. And so don't the people that I learn from. So whenever I do anything, they first give me permission to play their music. And if I demonstrate to them, which I've always tried to do, that I'm serious and I will not misuse what they've given me, they give me permission to come and play it, even when they're not there. But I have to say, I always compensate them. Money is a really lousy way to compensate people, but I do that because that's the only way I can do it, and they do need to eat. But I also compensate them by honoring and respecting them and always mentioning their name. And if I ever make any money off of anything, I share it with them. And the most important thing is that whatever I have learned, or instruments that I have, I only use that to teach it in the traditional way and not to make money off of as some kind of a so-called expert, which I'm not. I'm a student of the music. I'll learn it for as long as I live. I'll be learning it. I'm not an expert. The only experts are the master drummers and dancers and artists. And wherever and whenever possible, I include them in my work. In Ghana or here, if there's some of my teachers are here, I always include them in recordings, videos, and concerts when I can, when there's the ability to pay them and honor them that way. So I feel that that's important. And if I didn't get permission, then I wouldn't play it. There are some rhythms that I've heard, and I've even learned some, but I would never play those in public without somebody from the culture present. Spiritual music, such as akom, yeve, many brekete, ga akom, abodwese, all these different styles are sacred to the people. And while I may be able to play the techniques, yeah, I can learn the techniques and play them. Definitely not as good as a Ghanaian or a West African, but I can play them. But I don't believe I have the right to do that unless they're with me, because the music is not techniques. It includes the techniques, but it's far more than the techniques. In indigenous culture, the music has a meaning. What we saw in the other room with the Ghanaian instruments, that meaning is sacred to the people. I cannot violate that. That meaning has to be preserved, and it can only be preserved if there's somebody from the culture that's a master artist there leading the group. So for example, when I taught before I retired at UMass Dartmouth, we never played in public without being led by a master drummer. Even if I could have stood up there and played it, sometimes I did with them, but never without them. There has to be somebody from the culture to respect and honor, because the culture and the music is the feeling and the spirit you put into it. It's not just a pattern of techniques I could play with my two hands on the drums. No. So that's why I approach the music that way. And I think each person has to work out the way that they're going to do it as listeners and as musicians. And you can use that model or that approach to any culture that you come in, including European music, including classical music, or Native American music, or whatever. So having said that, and I just wanted to mention my teachers, to respect them, I'd like to open it up for any questions you got or discussion or anything, and then we'll continue on with a few other things. But please, any questions you'd like now, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, feel free to turn on your mics and speak. Also, I copied and pasted the full link of the video that you just saw
cool.
excerpt of, and
I want to watch that.
so you can see the rest.
I've got a quick question.
Oh, yeah.
So how long were you in Ghana and learning there?
Well, I started going, maybe some of you weren't born. I started going there well, I started learning African drumming. Well, I go all the way back. I started tap dancing at the age of 3, but I started playing African-based music in 1981 at Wesleyan University in Middletown, Connecticut, which has a very good world music program. And they have master artists from many cultures on their faculty. That was my first. Kobena adzenyah and kwadzo, donkor, and kwabena butocan. I learned from them. And I still, 2 of them are still alive, adzenyah and butocan. And butocan was in that film, but not in that segment, as was adzenyah. So I started going to Ghana in 1991, and I brought students there from when I taught at San Jose State in California, at San Jose, and then here at UMass Dartmouth, and at the New School in New York, and a few from Wesleyan. So on and off, I was doing it on an average of once every other year from 1991 to 2018. And then the last time we brought students was 2018 when I retired after that. But I miss it. I hope to bring people or students again because it's a wonderful experience. It's life-changing. It's really a life-changing experience. Every time I've been there maybe 20-something times, and maybe more, and it changes my life every time I go. And it changed the student's life. One of my students was a wonderful bass player, and he did the drumming and dance, Simon Desjardins, and he was so moved by the people's need for physical care, he became a doctor. Still plays music, but he's become a doctor so other people do different things in their life and inspire to teach. They get inspired to teach or whatever. But yeah, since going to Ghana, to answer your question, since 1991. So many times. And I was there for 2 years straight in 2013 to 2015 as a visiting artist in jazz, and then as a Fulbright scholar in 2014-15. So for 2 years, I just lived there straight through pretty much all the time, except I come back a few times for tours, but that was it. And that was in Kumasi. So with those drums that I started with, the atumpang and the boma, those were from that cultural area. So yeah, any other thoughts or questions?
Anyone on anything that?
I was wondering how your collaborators in the video there felt about electric piano and saxophone and adding melodic, Western influenced melodic elements to their beats. And do they do that when you're not there? Do they, do they do that kind of thing?
Yeah, in one of my drum books called West African Area Rhythms and Drum Set, there's a section on one music called akbese, and they actually have a trumpet that they play traditionally along with it. They have a tradition of brass bands. So they have heard, and they have they even have cell phones now. Jeez, I won't get started on that, but it's eroding their culture. But anyway, we won't get into that discussion. But they have the ability to hear all kinds of music. But they hadn't heard jazz because that's not commonly put on the airwaves. Maybe a few of them had a little, but no, they hadn't. But one of the things was we went to 14 different villages or places in Ghana when I did this film called We Are One, from which this Truth in the Moment had some segments like the one you just saw. And in each place, I had learned traditional drumming and dance and songs. So what I did, almost all of them actually, except 1 or 2, I took the music that I had learned from them and arranged a jazz piece with those rhythms in it. So when we went there, of course, we had to rehearse some. We did a little bit, but far less than we would have had to if we were starting from scratch. So in the piece that you just saw, that was a drumming called Anglo Kate, A-N-L-A. They have 6 letters we don't have, Anglo and then Kate. And it has the lead drum, which you saw the gentleman right near me playing. There was one behind him that was also lead drum, and then three other support drummers and a bell and a rattle. And that Anglokete has a song. Gawe maolu, ablavi gawe maolu, gawe maolu, ablavi gawe maolu, maolu, gawe maolu, maolu, gawe maolu, gawe maolu, ablavi gawe maolu. So that music, I heard that right away. I says, geez, I can put some chords to that like a jazz feel. D minor, E minor 7 over A, A13, flat 9, back to D minor. It felt so great. D minor to E flat 13, boom. So I arranged that. So when we went and played, even the melody that we played was a song that they had taught me. So they recognized the drum rhythms that I played, which were mostly the same rhythms that I had learned. And the bass and the saxophone and the piano were playing off of that melody, so they could relate to it. They had seen electric pianos because in their church they sometimes have piano and combined with drumming, interesting music of worship. So it wasn't a total new thing for them. They had seen instruments and they had heard, even if it's on their computers or radios, other kinds of music. Not much, if any, jazz, but when we brought a jazz sensibility with their drumming and their song melody to them, they could relate to it. It wasn't obvious at first, like because we had so much going. It was the bass and the sax and the piano, but they did hear the melody, and that allowed them to relate to it. And after we got going, played it a few times to rehearse, they were right on it. And if you noticed, when the bass soloed and at the beginning of the sax solo, I was playing with one hand and one stick, just like the lead master drummer next to me that was playing that drum called the sogo. He was playing one hand, one stick, and I was playing the same rhythms with him that he was playing that he had taught me earlier. That we recorded that in January 2015. That segment, and I learned it when I brought students there from UMass Dartmouth in June of 2005, so about 10 years later. But the songs were still there. So to answer your question, it was a new thing, but they could relate to it because the music I had learned and arranged for a jazz quartet were something that they could hear and relate to. That was a good question because
Cool.
people, you wouldn't know, some people, oh, they could just do it. No. In music, normally I wouldn't be able to do it at all. It wouldn't relate at all. And it'd be really hard. You'd have to practice a few days to get something together. But we did it in a couple of hours because they already knew what they had given me, and then I arranged it and they could hear it. So then we just put together the arrangement of how, like, who would solo first, the piano and then the bass and the sax. When they would get to drum, there was a section that we didn't show in that where they just do the drumming, and we're just let them go, and they're sort of like doing a drum solo, and then the melody comes back at the end. Cool. Yes.
And Royal, that wasn't being passed on as like authentic African music, right? That was a collaboration between your ensemble and them, right?
It's a cross-cultural thing, and they understood that, and we did too. We're not saying that what we're playing is African music. But it's an interesting connection. It brings up the idea of, can you connect two really different cultures, which this was not actually, but like, what if we were doing this with Indonesian gamelan? I think you could do it, but you'd have to really be around it just as long as I was around African drumming to really find some common place where they can intersect. This, in some ways, was an easier, I don't know, I shouldn't say easier. It's a more natural connection because the African-American tradition we know as jazz, in large part, has the aesthetics and the whole sensibility of West African drumming, dance, and song, which is known collectively as a dance drama. It's not thought of as just music on its own, like drumming, instrumental music, flutes, instrumental music, or string instruments, or singing, or whatever. It's drumming and dance and song is a drama of life, and that's the thing we connect to. Just as in the jazz tradition, for many years, the instrumental music connected with dance, with ballroom, the Lindy Hop and tap dance, and singing, jazz singing, Billie Holiday, or scat singing of Betty Carter. So there is a life drama in jazz too, when it can be allowed to happen the way it is best at.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions or thoughts, comments? Yeah.
I have a question. I was going to ask, like, as you were trying to learn all this stuff, how do you get your foot in the door to even be able to talk to all the people that have the ability to teach you
Oh, yeah.
everything that you need to know?
Yeah. I had been at Wesleyan for 10 years before I went to Ghana. And my teachers there, kobena, adzenyah, Freeman, kwadzo, donkor, and kobena, gave me a good background in the drumming and the dance and the song. I wasn't anything great or anything, but I could function and play with some integrity. And they arranged for me to go to a certain village, where they were known. And I met another musician in the U.S., Godwin Kwesi Agbeli, who is in Kopeiya village where I went. That was one of the first places I went. And because my teachers knew the people in the village, they, communicated with them, hey, Royal's coming over, check them out, help them, give them lessons and whatever. And that's how it worked. So it wasn't like I just went there cold and went up to a village and tried to go. If you do that, that's really hard. You can do it, but you have to spend a lot of time finding a place, and then I don't say you'd have to gain their trust. Well, yeah, maybe gain their trust, but know that you're not trying to con them into anything. And they're smart. They knew what I was thinking before I did. They wouldn't be conned into anything. But if you demonstrate, they want to know if you're real, basically, if you're serious. If you are, if you're not serious and you're just trying to have a good time, they'll still teach you, but they won't see that you really want to do something good with the music they give you. But if you show that you're serious and will respect what they're giving you, then they are totally open-hearted. That's one of the beauties of that culture. And in other places where I've been in Asia, the Philippines, it's as if you were, the kind of feel, well, if you're lucky enough to have parents like I was, give you unconditional love and an open heart, it feels like that, actually. And the people, you don't know these people all your life. How can it be like that? Well, it is. The culture is just an open-hearted culture. And you can talk to anybody. Stranger, you talk to them. If I go on a subway in New York and I talk to somebody, they look at me, what's your angle? What are you trying to take some money from you or something? Not always. There's some good people. I'm not criticizing. I go to New York. I love New York. And there's good people. It's not that they're bad. It's just the way it is in an urban thing. You sort of have to be in your little thing, right? Well, over there, no. They would say, here they'd say, what's wrong with you for talking, a stranger, right? Even though you could, I suppose, in some circumstance. Over there, if you don't talk to them, what's wrong with you? How come you're not? You greet everybody, or you usually do. So it's very different. But as long as you have you're open to them, they're open to you. So I was smoothly transitioned into the culture by my teachers. And that's one thing, if you ever go to a culture, even if it's not for music, it really helps to have somebody from the culture open the doors for you. That saves months, weeks, and energy. So,
Elizabeth, I think you had a question.
Yeah, actually, that was part of my question. Like, obviously, like it'd be hard, like you said, to like jump in without a connection. So that's cool that you found a connection. But I guess I was wondering, like, what made you want to actually go in like instead of just staying here and learning?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I understood that I could learn the techniques and have some idea of the culture, but without being in the culture, I'd never know what it was. And I don't know if you can ever really know what it is, like I just said, but to have a sense of it, to just have a sense of it. Like I want to see the trees that the drums were made out of. I want to see how the people sing. I want to see what they're like when they're not performing. And it's not like a performance, like it's a concert and there's an audience and you have people bringing, no. Everybody just comes around. That's the beauty of it. It's not like a club where, you know, you got to pay $10 to cover charge and there's a bouncer and they have to have 2 drinks. No, it's just everybody comes, old, young, everybody. Nobody's excluded. It mirrors the way that people live with you, with each other, and each other. Unconditional love, open heart. It's right there. It's inspiring. It's exhilarating, actually. Jesus, I'd give anything that here. Maybe it used to be like that, or some rural communities maybe it is, but you know, generally, it's not. But I guess it was important for me to see the culture. Yeah, okay. The drumming is the life and the culture. If you're just learning a part of it here, even if it's just part of it, that does help you give an idea, yeah. But to really see the culture, you got to be in it. And that I learned when I went into Peace Corps. When I just got out of college, I went 2 years in the Philippines, and it changed my life because I had known about other cultures, you know, poverty or hunger or disease or whatever, but I didn't know what it was. I knew about it, but I didn't know what it was, what it felt like. And I wanted to feel that. And I did. And it changed my life. I could never be a citizen of any country again. I could never think of myself as an individual. I could never think of myself as really owning anything. I couldn't think of myself as a quantifiable object or whatever that makes us, you know, I don't know what that is, but when you got all the numbers and then there's the account number and your link number and your personal ID and your password. Yeah, we got to have that, but that's not what we are. Like Sun Ra said, he was, look him up, Herman Blount is his first original name, Mobile, Alabama, 1914. He was a great band leader. He had what he called a solar orchestra in jazz. They were playing really outside music. And I saw him many times, spoke with him. And he said in his presentation, he says, I'm not from the earth, we're from Saturn. That was a way of saying, it's too hard to be a citizen here. We got too much stuff cluttering up our brains and our emotions, and no, can't be human here. No, we're from Saturn. Over there, you can be human. And it was a nice, what's the word? Parable or something? But I would highly recommend, if any of you are not certain of what to do, unless it's changed a lot in the many years since I was in it, consider strongly the Peace Corps. I believe that every person, everywhere in the world, never mind US, should spend 2 years of service, national service, somewhere in your country where you're not from, or in another country, even better, where it's a whole different culture. You have to learn the language, you have to have a sense of the culture. You live with the people, not in a tourist hotel. You do what they do, you contribute to their society, and you get something back far greater, and it stays with you your whole life. And I would even go so far as to say the idea that that would be mandatory for everybody in return for free, totally free education that our tax dollars already go for, by the way, that you shouldn't have to pay a dime to go to the university. And in return for that, you give 2 years of your life in national service and international service to help the world be better. But the consequence of that, it makes you better than you ever thought you could be, because you can see the world and yourself in ways you never would have otherwise. So that's just my little commercial for the Peace Corps or anything else like that. But to answer your question, yeah, basic reason, I needed to see what it really was, what the culture was, because the music is the culture. If I just learn the techniques, I'm just learning the techniques, but not what it really is, the guts of it underneath. And that's what matters most. So I hope that answers it.
It's interesting you say that. I haven't done the Peace Corps, so I haven't recommended that straight away. But whenever my students that are graduating ask me, like, what should I do next? I'm like, get out of here. Go somewhere where you're not in your element. Go somewhere new, meet a new culture, get outside your comfort zone. You know, especially if you've lived here all your life, go and have another experience in a different place, a different culture, a different sensibility. So I'm all for that. And students in the chat are supporting that idea too. So in the chat window.
Yeah, if you're undecided at what you want to do, don't feel bad. Like, oh, you're lacking. No, you're not lacking. You're not sure. You got a right to not be sure. It's a crazy world. Jesus. I didn't know. I thought I was going to be a priest, believe it or not. Wow. I don't know where that came from. And then, so somebody said, look, just go to the Peace Corps. It'll make you see it. So I went. And I came back, and I still didn't know what I was going to do. I wanted to go into medicine, but I didn't believe I could be a doctor. I probably could have, but didn't believe in myself because I was blown away by all the horror that I saw. And I was I was so messed up. Like, why do I, as 2.0000021 of the world's population, I have a house, loving parents, food, clothing, education, meaningful work, I learn music. Why do I have that? And these people over here could be with brown skin, with black skin, even with white skin. These people over here, they're dying of, like, what we'd have the flu. Oh, you'd take an antibiotic if it's bad. They're dead. Their heads are like this. One little thing and they go under. The day I left that village that's in the thing on Yako, a little boy 9 years old died. I said, what did he die from? Oh, it's sort of like lung thing, like the flu. Like in America, you'd call it the flu. I said, what? Can't he just, no. They didn't have any medicines. There's nothing to do. It just got worse and he died. I was so depressed after that. So anyway, it's just something I'd like to share with you, that think about that. And I was bitter. I wanted to blow the world up. I was so mad. I could see this inequity. They're getting shafted every day of the week all over the world. Every day in sub-Saharan Africa, 24,000 people die of completely preventable medical causes. Completely. That's before COVID. That's 9/11 times 8 every day. It's horrible. I was so blown away when I just, okay, I'm going to nuke the world. I'm going to get a bomber and just wipe it off the universe. I was raged. But then I heard the great group, McCoy Tyner Quartet, who's a pianist that just died a year ago. And he played with, I don't know if any of you have heard John Coltrane. Listen to John Coltrane's A Love Supreme. John Coltrane. I heard that music. They played a 4-hour concert at UMass Amherst. Okay, 4 hours. They played 2 tunes. 2. It was Take No Prisoners. It was all out death and life from the first note at 8 o'clock till midnight. Death and life. I just stood there and I said, you know, I don't know if there's any God, there's any meaning, anything that matters. But whatever that is, I want to do that. I know that's real. And that eventually made me believe that, you know, there might be meaning. There might be a God. There might be something good in this world, even though everything around us doesn't look that way when you look around, but there might be something deep and real and good through the music. So, wow, that's where I got motivated. And so that's the story. So, any other thoughts or questions? Okay, I'd just like to share 2.
Sorry, can I just, I think we should take a break soon.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Before we go to the next thing. And also just before you go, I remember this beautiful story you told us 4 years ago, whenever, 2016, when you were playing in Ghana, I think it was, and you were sweating, and this woman came and wiped your
Oh yeah.
when you were talking about just now, when you were talking about the sense of community and kinship and togetherness, if you can just maybe we can go on break after you share that little beautiful story with us.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was playing. This is my first time, 1991. I was over there with Godwin Agbili. We went to a funeral, and Jesus, there were 7 drumming groups. Imagine this. Each group had like 40 people. It was in a big open area. They're all drumming, and they weren't playing together. 7 different things all at the same time, dancing, drumming, bum 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 bum. And I'm here. He says, and I really, I'm a drummer. I want to play with him. So he knew right away. So he says, okay, you go and play there. Bum, bum. And I did my best. It was 95 in the shade, and we were in the sun. So it's like 110. The humidity is like, well, it was 100. It was probably 400. I mean, I was just soaked, but I was trying as fast. I was trying, and they let me play, and I held on. I held on to it, fast tempo, giddy, giddy, giddy. But this lady was a singer, I guess, or a dancer, and she saw I was struggling. So one of the things is when somebody wipes your head, or even puts money on your head, that means they appreciate what you're doing. So she came over with the cloth and she wiped my head, and I looked at her and I said, wow, thank you. And she looked at me and she said, we are one. I never forgot that as long as I lived. And that was one of the reasons for the film called We Are One that I think Professor Abghari has given you. Okay.
Yes, the link is there, and there's a password for it too.
Okay.
Thank you for that. So shall we take a 10-minute break and then come back?
Yeah, okay.
All right, see you in 10. Thank you.
Cool. $10. It's 6:30. Okay.
So 4:41.
Oh yeah, fine. Yeah, I'm just here. I'll be cool.
Okay. No, I need a little break. Okay, I'll be back in 10.
Yeah, sure. It's good. Again, that could be heard as calling everybody to come together. It could be having a good time, but it also could be remembering an ancestor. Okay, I would like to now go to a different place in the house and to the room where I keep some other instruments. And we'll have to just check to see if you can see me okay here. Is that, can you hear that okay? Or? Excuse me, is that sound halfway?
No, it's good. It's good.
So what I'd like to do, this is a synthetic plastic metal drum. I'm going to play some rhythms that are known as usul from Turkish music. And usul are rhythmic cycles and rhythms, kind of like a foundation for melodic instruments or for singing. And I had a beautiful wooden goatskin bendir frame drum, circular frame drum, but back in New England, the dry winter, it destroyed the head and I couldn't play it. So I've got a closest sounding thing, even though it looks pretty bogus, but the sound is pretty close. So this is a frame drum, and I'm going to play some patterns, and I'm going to ask Professor Abghari to sing with me, but I'm going to just outline what patterns I'll play. First, I'm going to do a 3-beat pattern, or 6, called samai. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. Then 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to speed that up. And so forth. And then I'm going to get really fast, and I might drop right off the cliff and come down into a slow 9-beat cycle called, the 7 cycle is called Devri Hindi. It originates from Indian music. And the 9-beat is called Evfer. That's a spiritual music. Again, with permission from feridun, ozogren, and Fred Stubbs. And that 9-beat is 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and so forth. But the interesting thing is, in Turkish music, it's traditional that in some cases you stretch the end of a cycle, like this, say a 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, So it's not metronomic. It's not like an assembly line. So I'd like to invite Professor Abghari to join me on this. It's a total open improvisation, but it's traditional in Turkish music that the melodic line doesn't need to fit exactly with where the drum accompaniment is playing, the cycle. In fact, it's expected that it would be going over it and past it in this beautiful dancing on the time of life. Excuse me. And you could hear this music, and traditionally it is heard as the dance of vocalized sound, or if there was an instrument doing it, an instrumental sound, string instrument like kamense or the Persian or the Turkish flute known as ney, dancing over the time of the bendir drum as a metaphor for how we individually and collectively dance through time and space in our lives. So I'll just start this. And
so just before we go, let me just push the microphone back a little bit because I'm closer than you are. And also, just the students know, this is a rough improvisation on Zoom. Sound doesn't work so well as far as hearing both parties. So hopefully it'll be okay as far as hearing enough of each of us. And also, what does this instrument remind you of? What instrument did we look at early on that's a lot like this? Remember the Kurdish film, and what was the frame, that frame drum called?
Is it a daff or am I making that up?
Excellent, that's it, you got it. Oh, you $5. All right.
okay.
All right, so most of them have never heard me sing, so here you go. Hopefully you can hear both of us.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful, haleh.
Thanks.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. It's wonderful. I so miss working with you. Could you guys hear both of us okay? Sort of? That's a first, because I do so many lessons on Zoom and certain frequencies especially cut out, especially when we go into super high range. So we didn't do that. But thank you, Royal. I miss
Oh,
working.
thank you. I wish we got to do this in person sometime.
Yeah, somehow. Thank you.
Okay, well, another thing I'd like to look at is music as a political and cultural survival. This was in a book, you could check the book out, maybe even online. It's by Bessie Jones, a woman in the Georgia Sea Islands tradition of clapping plays. And they're stories and plays with songs and rhythms and dance, very parallel to West African dance drumming and song and dance. They're called the dance drama, as I mentioned to you. In Georgia Sea Islands and throughout the South, there are these clapping plays that give moral education to youth and adults and all kinds, expressing life's drama. Really, it's a drama of life. So one of them is called Patin Juba. And I would need to take a long time to explain it. But just let's say one of the inhumanities that were visited upon African Americans on plantations were having to eat out of an animal trough every so many days. And on Sundays, sometimes people would picnic and watch the overseers, the plantation owners, would picnic and watch the African captives eat out of an animal trough to humiliate them and for their own perverse enjoyment. And they have to sing and dance too. And all kinds of food left over, soured milk, just anything you can imagine. It's horrible. They had to eat and drink out of it and then dance and sing, make them entertain the plantation owners. So one of the ways they did it and psychologically got over it, just like in the blues you have AAB, statement, restatement, resolution. Oh, that dog was the best dog I ever had. Man, that dog was the best dog I ever had. Yeah. But I'm going to just somehow go on and keep that dog in my heart. Resolution of psychological difficulty. In the same way here, a resolution of psychological difficulty and physical difficulty by dancing and singing or speaking in code. Juba this and Juba that. Juba stands for the giblets of the rotten meat that was tossed in milk and you have to eat it. So giblets got transformed into gibbers, into Juba. Juba. It's a dance step that comes from Africa too. But here, Juba is this clapping play. So the words are Juba this and Juba that. Juba killed a yellow cat. That meant the plantation owner. And somehow the plantation owners weren't hip. They just didn't know. But they were being dissed on. And that allowed the captives to keep their sanity and ride over on them without them knowing it. And they danced to it. And here are some of the words to it. But what I'd like you to do, if you want to try it along, there's all kinds of clap. Boom, bop, boom, bop. And then there's double time. And then there's bop, 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 bop. There's many, 4 or 5 claps all together, which is not unlike the rhythms of the West African drum ensemble. But there's one that's really interesting. It's sort of hard, but just do your best. You have 3 pats on each leg. Down, you can just try this on your own. We don't have to be in time. Down, up, down. All right. And then with your other hand, you go down, up, down. So try this if you can. It's, for me, it would be looking, you'd be looking at this would be right to you, but with my left. Left, up, down, right, up, down. Left, up, down, right, up, down. You just keep doing that. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And here's the words. Now, what you got to do, what I'm going to have you do is after I say the word Juba, you yell it out. So if I go Juba, Juba, you guys say it, all right? Here we go. Juba this and Juba that. Juba killed a yellow cat. Get out of the double trouble. Juba, 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 Juba. You sifted the meal, you give me the husk. You cook the bread, you give me the crust. You fry the meat, You give me the skin, and that's where all my trouble began. You just juba.
Juba.
Juba. You
Juba.
just juba.
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 Juba for ma, and juba for pa, and juba for your brother-in-law. Juba up, juba down, juba all around town. Get of the dog with trouble. Juba, 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 juba,
Juba.
Good. Juba left, juba. Juba that, Juba killed the yellow cat and get him a dog with trouble. Juba. Juba this and Juba that, Juba killed the yellow cat and get him a dog with trouble. Juba. 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 You just Juba. Okay. That's a music of protest. Now what I'd like to do is go to the drum set, and I'm going to turn on the lights because it's starting to get towards evening. Uh-oh. Oh, wait a minute. I got to plug it in first. Technology, huh? Wow. All right. All right, here we are. Okay, there's a light that's on, and I'm going to put another one on. Okay. Now, I'm going to experiment with, I think this is going to work as we tried yesterday, putting it on a music stand. I want to see if that works. Let me sit there. Does this, can you see me? Let's see here.
If it's possible to be, yes, that's good. We just see, it's a kind of a tight frame. Another, I think, foot back might be a little better. That didn't really change it, did it?
No.
Did you move it back? Actually, like
I did move back.
moving the stand back like by 1 or 2 feet?
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's good.
This is a one-man operation. I think that's better. We'll see. We kind of don't see your face, but
That's okay. As long, can you see the drums?
yeah, I think so.
All right. Good.
You can see what.
Cool. So after, when we do talking, I'll bring it up. But first, so the first thing I'd like to talk about is the drum set historically as a way to express time and life and dance. In the early days, 1900 to about 1925, 6, 7, 8, till the late 20s, it was very fragmented, and they didn't have a hi-hat. They had just a wood block and a snare drum, bass drum, and sometimes a choke cymbal, and Chinese gongs and toms, which I have, but I don't have here. So I'm going to do just a short demonstration of the early 1920s, teens, and even after the turn of the 20th century, a sound that you'd find, for example, in the music of Louis Armstrong with the drummer Warren Baby Dodds. the music would have sounded in the 1920s. Now we're talking about primarily jazz music and how it was used for dances and played for as accompaniment for dance and song. In the 1930s, we get to see a different style evolve, where instead of a tuba in the group, that would normally a group would have piano, tuba, drums, clarinet, trombone, and cornet or trumpet. By the 1930s, it evolved into saxophone and trumpet, sometimes trombone, piano, instead of banjo, piano, and a string bass and drums. And a great drummer named Papa Joe Jones started the use of brushes. Usually these are synthetic brushes, but they're usually wire brushes. And they give a swishing sound. You can hear, I don't know if you can hear that. Is that audible or maybe not?
It's good. I can hear it very well.
So it was a kind of music that was, instead of fragmented on time, dancing in a fragmented way, it's a connected smooth way with the sound of these smooth brushes. And people actually, in the 20s, they danced apart usually. In the 30s, they actually danced with each other, holding a partner. I actually don't know what the dances are like today, but my students tell me, or they told me, and I used to see a few dances, and people don't hold each other anymore. I don't know what's going on with that, but you know, when I was younger, of course, we used to actually dance. I mean, you'd actually hold the person, you'd hold their hand, and if you got really lucky, you might even touch their cheek. I mean, that would be really special. So anyway, dancing used to be, at least, I don't know how it is now, but you guys could tell me. Maybe I'll ask you that question when we get to the discussion and questions. But dancing was really dancing then. You got to hold a person close to you. Man, that was great. Okay, and this smooth sound animated that feeling of time and pose, like this. Joe innovated the use of the hi-hat. He left it open a little, and it would give this sizzling sound like a sparkling movement over time that was connected. Interesting, 1930s. The Great Depression, 1929, a time of fear, a time of anxiety because of the emerging sense of fascism in Europe that eventually led, by the late 1930s, to invasions and World War II for the US in 1941. But while that anxiety was happening, the need to dance close, the need to have smooth and connected musical time, musical rhythm, musical movement to counteract maybe the fragmenting of consciousness and anxiety in a world moving towards the catastrophic Second World War, and just after the catastrophic economic fallout of the Great Depression. Just my opinion on that one. But, okay, then we come to the 40s and 50s, and even in the 60s, what we call bebop, which is a kind of a more individual style, and in which time is expressed not so evenly with a bass drum going like this, but fragmenting the time all over the drum set. I'll do a little bit of an example of a solo in the style of Ed Blackwell or Max Roach coming around the drums in a bebop style. The way time would be expressed in 40s, 50s, 60s bebop.
Bebop, yes.
We have music that comes from different world music sources. And one of those is, for example, here, India, where I've developed some ways of playing, and some others have too, in uneven metrical cycles. Like we have 1, 2, 3, 4. You hear that, right? Okay. In other styles, you can play 4, 10, or 11. So 11 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11. Okay, now I'm going to put an Indian rhythmic design, which is called solkatu, on top of this drumming. And let's try this together. We're going to do a tala. A tala is a cycle of time, not unlike the usul we saw with Turkish music or the bell pattern with West African drumming. And a tala is basically means time cycle. And a simple one is 8 beats. When you go, you can clap it. Clap. Your pinky is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So let's try that. Clap. 5, 4, 3. Let's just do that much. That's 4 beats. Ready, go. Clap, 5, 4, 3. Now let's make it 8 by going clap, wave, clap, wave. We're adding that to the first 4. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, good. Now I'm going to change that. That's a basic pattern called chaturashra triputa. That just means 8 beats. I'm going to do one in 11 now. This is going to be mishra triputa, 7 plus 4. So it's going to go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then clap, wave, clap, wave. It would take long. I'm trying to rush through it. It would take long to explain why that's triputa. But what it is just 7 plus 4 beats of clap, wave, clap, wave. So it's 7 plus 4, meaning 11. I'll say the rhythmic design called solkatu. It's solkatu, and it uses syllables taki tatang tadin gi na that come from the mridangam drum of South India. And so I'll say it first with this, and then I'll play it on the drum set. So here we go. In fact, maybe I'll play with it. Yeah. So taki tatang tadin gi na ta di tom. Tadin gi natum, tadin gi natum, tadin gi natum, tadin gi natum, ta di tom. tadin ginatum, tadin ginatum, tadin ginatum, tadin ginatum, ta di tom. Ta din ginatum, ta din ginatum, ta din ginatum, tom tom, ta din ginatum, ta tom tom, ta din ginatum, tom tom tom, ta din ginatum, ta dan din ginatum, ta din ginatum, ta din ginatum, ta din ginatum. So one way that you can adapt music from another culture, from Indian culture, into this African American tradition we know as jazz. And for that, I have been given permission by my teacher, the late Tanjore Ranganathan. Because time is going, boy, I had 100 other things to give you, but we'll have to do it some other time.
Wait.
I'm sorry?
What was that counting called again?
What was that? I'm sorry?
What was that counting called again?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, there's two aspects. There's tala, which is the time cycle, T-A-L-A, what we do with keeping the tala like this. And even if somebody's traditionally in a performance in South India or North India, somebody in the group would be keeping that time cycle visually with their hand. Or the musicians would do it if they were singing, they would do it with their own hand on the drum. But even if it's not there, it would be kept internally. Just like it's true, the African drumming, if there wasn't a bell, it would be kept internally. Or the usul in Turkish music.
And then,
on top of that, the vocable, the design, the rhythmic design, that's called solkatu, S-O-L-K-A-T-T-U. It translates from Indian language as sol, meaning speech or syllables. Katu, K-A-T-T-U, is bunch of or group of. So it would be group of syllables. So in a way, it's like putting together sounds and speaking a rhythmic design. And no matter what instrument you play, you have to learn that solkatu before you play it on your instrument. And for example, there might be a melody on that solkatu. Da-da-da-da. I wrote a piece based on it, but in traditional Indian music, that solkatu design would go with the melody very often. And it accompanies the tala. It's a very good parallel. The way haleh sang over the Turkish bandir, she was dancing over that sound the same way. The solkatu dances over the tala time cycle. Is that give an idea of it? Okay. Cool. Great.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. So now the last one, I'm going to leave out a bunch. We'll do it next time. This is a West African drum. So we've come back in a circle called lunga in the northern part of Ghana, but the rest of Ghana is called dono. You can see it's got two heads, and because it has strings connecting the heads, it's hourglass shape. I don't know if you can see that. You can see that you can change the pressure on the strings and therefore the heads to make the pitch change. Here's low. Now I'll tighten it. Now I'll really tighten it. So you can hear there are different pitches, and these two can reflect languages. Here's a couple of examples. Soboji, soboji gama. Do dia folk peme gavoyi soboji. Soboji, soboji gama. Do dia folk peme gavoyi soboji. Gadegafo. Gadegafo. Soboji, soboji gama means remember your culture, be proud of your heritage. Gadegafo was invented during the British curfew in 1953 when Ghana was agitating for independence. And the people said, no, we're not going to go in our house at 6 o'clock. This is our country. And so this vugbe, this drum language, gadega, which comes out in drum as gadegaga, it represents the words gadegapo, which literally means a bell has rung, or it's 6 o'clock again. And the inner meaning, there's always an inner meaning, we're tired of having to go in our house at 6. No more. This is our country. Boom. We're not going to do it. We're going to resist it. And that's what this represents. So I'm going to just do a short version of adapting traditional West African rhythms from many pieces taught to me by kobena, adzenyah, and kwadzo, donkor, with a feel in bass drum and hi-hat that's from an African American tradition that will mirror these patterns, and it'll change throughout. I'll just do a short example so we can get to some questions. Okay, so here we are. Okay, so that is one example of a cross-cultural adaptation of traditional West African drumming and African American jazz approach with on drum set. And I use this also in my Blood Drum Spirit group for a piece that we call Dalpampa. Okay, so there's a lot more stuff, but it's already getting a little late, I guess, unfortunately. So I'll open it up if there's any questions or comments anybody has. Let's, and I'll push the, I'll bring the music stand in a little more.
We have 7 minutes for questions.
Okay, cool.
I'm gonna cut it off sharp so we can talk about the test for your own good.
Okay.
But ask away. Ominous silence follows. So from the dance thing, Cameron, when he was talking about dancing, since you're a dancer, do you have anything to add to that? I saw your face kind of light up at the moment, so I am looking at you guys, but I'm looking at expressions and reactions, and it's wonderful.
Well, when you were talking about the Lindy Hop, I know a lot about that because I myself, I've been tap dancing since I was 3. So, yeah.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, I love dance. It's one of my passions. I really, I'm going to be going for that next semester, hopefully, when I can actually get on campus. But that's one of the things that actually drew me to this school is dance. So it was really, it's so interesting because I took history of jazz last semester and Kitty was in that class with me. Fun fact. So a lot of things that you had talked about connected from that class into this presentation. It was so cool to actually understand what you were talking about, especially since I have a friend who is from the Republic of Congo, and he doesn't talk too much about okay, that's a lie. He talks a lot about music, but he doesn't talk about it necessarily where he comes from as much as his father does. His
Okay.
father, because I've had a conversation with them, he talks so much about music and he works on the Senate there. And it's so interesting to learn about that culture and a different part of their where he came from. So it was really cool. And dance is another one of his passions. So
That's great. You know, I can tell you that I'm not great. My uncle and my mother were really great tap dancers. I totally failed in that, but I still love it. But when I learned some dances in Ghana, the not all of them, but many of them, if you put shoes with taps on the people that were dancing, it would be tap dance. I mean, the moves in the body, more the hand, the arms, the torso. Because in Africa, just like the drumming has many different layers that come all together to make a composite statement, different rhythms and time feels. Same way in the dance, that's expressed in the dance with the feet, the legs, the hips, the torso, the hands, the arms, the head. All of them move together, but sometimes differently. Sometimes you can see 4 or 5 layers in the body of the dancer that reflect the 4 or 5 layers in the traditional drum ensemble that's playing the rhythms that they're dancing to. It's really deep. And I think that's a direct connection to tap dance, which is a melding of Irish and African American dance together. And it's everything. It's like tap, it's music because it's got sound, it's rhythm, it's dance, it's sculpture in a way, moving in space, it's visual art. I mean, it's really a great art. And so that's cool that you're taking it. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and the videos I posted show the dances, the blood drum spirit videos, and also in the full film, if you watch that, there is bits of Dr. Hardigan tap dancing. I remember there was a
Oh yeah, okay. Well,
bit of that.
that's so. I wish I had gotten better, but anyway.
I was impressed. Any other questions about anything? Or responses, doesn't have to be a question.
Yeah, any thoughts or comments? What I had something I was going to ask them. What was it? I forgot now.
It was the dance holding each other thing.
Yeah, you were gonna ask us about holding each other and
Oh yeah,
dancing.
the people still, the people ever dance touching each other anymore, or no? Am I?
COVID
Oh,
time.
I will say for me and my boyfriend, we like to dance to older jazz tunes, John Coltrane and all that. So we usually just kind of swing around together. But
okay.
that's us. We don't like going clubbing, so.
That's cool. Yeah.
Go ahead, Cameron, or anyone else.
Well-
actually, oh, should I let Jordan go first?
Both of you go just quickly so we can get you both in.
Okay, you
Okay.
go first, and then I'll go second.
Okay, I'll be really quick. So I love swing dancing. That's one of my favorite things. However, I was talking to my swing dance instructor about it, and they have said that dance has just become so independent and more so like hip hop sexualized. So it's like it's more dancing on your own, and if you're touching, it's touching for a very certain reason, which sounds bad, but not so much swing or like the sweet kind of dancing that you would see in the past.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, there's still quite a bit of dancing that goes on where people do touch. Like for instance, like I'm a big fan of salsa dancing and bachata,
Yeah.
and that
Great.
like but bachata is so cool because you go out on like a Saturday night and you go to the bachata and it's really everybody's dancing together and you take your turn with whichever person you want to dance with. So
That's great.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Cool.
Wonderful. You have 1 minute. If anyone wants to squeeze something else in.
Yeah, anybody else? If I had more time, I'd ask each one of you of what you want to do in the future when you're with your studies or what your plans are, but we don't have time for that. So I just wish you all well, and I want to thank you, Professor, for having me do this time. And
I'd like to thank you very much on behalf of the class and myself. thoroughly entertained the whole time and learned a lot of good information. So thank you very much.
Thank you. My pleasure. Someday we can do it in person, maybe. Or
Yeah.
if we go to Ghana, maybe we'll all go to Ghana sometime.
Yeah, maybe we can set up a summer program or something. But thank you, Dr. Hardigan. That was just so special, and so everything coming out of you playing or speaking, so valuable.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Wonderful, good excuse to reconnect with you all.
Yeah, so I'll email you at some point soon.
Yeah, and I'll send you the link to the presentation recording too, just if you want to also access it.
I'd love to get a copy of it. Yeah, that'd be great.
It'll be a huge file, so I'll talk to you, we'll talk about that. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.